I didn't realize it had happened until I sat in my car and didn't cry. Just sat there, keys still in the ignition, my hand resting on my thigh like I wasn't holding my whole past inside my ribs. And the tears didn't come. Not because I was strong, not because I was healed, but because something deeper had gone quiet. It wasn't relief, it was absence. Like the part of me that used to panic, used to ache, used to perform, had finally gone still. I used to beg in silence, not with words, but with the way I waited for his name to light up my phone, with the way I over-explained, overgave, overhoped, all because I didn't want to be the one left needing. I used to think caring meant staying, that if I held on tightly enough, long enough, he'd see me clearer. But all I became was invisible in my own story. Loving him turned into disappearing from myself, and then, one day, I left. Not with a slam door, not with a speech, but with the sound of my own breath coming back to me, like my lungs remembered who they were before they were filled with someone else's name. That's the thing they never tell you about healing. It doesn't feel like power at first. It feels like nothing. Like sitting in the car and realizing your body no longer trembles in places it used to scream. I thought I'd miss him more. I thought I'd unravel. But what really broke me wasn't the leaving. It was realizing I had been afraid to be unseen. So I kept performing for love that wasn't watching. Now, I'm quiet. Not empty. Just done begging. And that, somehow, feels like a kind of beginning. Even if I don't know where it leads. Even if I'm still learning how to walk without falling back. At least now, I'm walking. I used to call it love, but it wasn't. It was panic, dressed in affection. Terror disguised as tenderness. Every smile I gave him, every question I asked, every soft, "Are you okay?" was just a lifeline I was throwing into a silence I didn't want to drown in. I wasn't trying to understand him. I was trying to keep him from fading. Like if I stayed close enough, soft enough, sweet enough, he wouldn't vanish. I thought I was nurturing love. But really, I was managing distance. I was tracking the moments he grew cold, adjusting my temperature to meet his comfort, shrinking myself into a shape that wouldn't scare him off. That wasn't love. That was hypervigilance. You see, I didn't want love. I wanted to be chosen. I wanted to be safe. And somewhere along the way, I started calling my fear by a softer name. Every time I forgave without apology, every time I stayed quiet when my throat burned with truth, every time I reached first, texted first, broke first, I told myself it was because I loved him. But deep down, it was because I was afraid he'd forget I existed. I don't think I even saw him. Not really. I saw the version of him that gave me meaning. The one I needed to reflect something back. Something that made me feel real. When he looked at me, I felt like I mattered. When he pulled away, I unraveled. I built rituals around his attention. The way his good morning texts set the tone for my entire day. The way his silence made me spiral, made me reread every message I'd sent, made me apologize for things I didn't even do just to feel close again. I confused proximity with connection, response with care, possession with intimacy, and I thought that meant I loved him. But love isn't a gamble. It doesn't make you beg in polite tones, doesn't make you apologize for your sensitivity, doesn't make you feel like a burden for wanting to be held. Love doesn't demand your self-abandonment as proof, but I couldn't see that then, because I was still chasing a ghost of safety, something I thought he could give me if only I bled gently enough, if only I never needed too much, and so I made a religion out of staying. Even when the altar burned me, even when my prayers turned into apologies, even when I disappeared trying to be enough. They say love should make you whole, but this didn't. It hollowed me. It trained me to believe that my worth was measured by how much pain I could swallow without speaking. I used to think I was strong for loving through it, but what I really was scared. Scared to be alone, scared to be forgettable, scared to face the silence of my own unmet needs. And that's the hardest truth to admit, that I wasn't loving. I was surviving, and I called it love so it wouldn't sound so desperate. so I wouldn't have to admit how addicted I was to crumbs. But now I see it clearly. Now I name it for what it was: panic, masquerading as devotion, desperation, whispering in the language of care. It wasn't love. It was the fear of being left again. And I was willing to bleed beautifully just to be kept. It wasn't sudden. That's what shocked me the most. There was no loud betrayal, no screaming match, no final straw that shattered the illusion all at once. It was quieter than that. And for a moment, I wanted to answer. Because the pattern was familiar. Because being seen, even falsely, still felt like something. But I didn't. Not this time. Because I finally understood that if someone only comes when you pull away, they were never really coming toward you. They were circling, hovering, waiting for you to bleed first, so they'd never have to. It's not romance. It's possession. It's not care. It's control. He didn't miss me. He missed the version of himself that existed in my devotion. And I'm done being the stage where other people come to feel powerful. Now, my silence is not absence. It's protection. It's truth. It's the first time I stopped begging for what was never mine. And for the first time in a long time, he had to feel what it's like to be the one waiting. I wanted him to feel it. The ache, the weight in the chest, the way the nights get longer when someone you love becomes a ghost that still has a heartbeat. I wanted him to wake up one day and realize what he lost. Not in theory, but in his body. The kind of missing that sits in your teeth, that you carry in your spine. I wanted him to remember me at the most inconvenient times, in the middle of a good day, while laughing with someone else. I wanted my name to interrupt his peace, the way his absence shattered mine. But he never did. And even if he did, he'd never feel it like I did. Because I loved with both hands open. Because I stayed longer than I should have. Because I meant every word I said. Because I felt it deep, loud, and without armor. And he didn't. Not because he's evil, not because he's cruel, but because he can't. Not in the way I needed. Not in the way I imagined. I kept holding on to this fantasy that one day he'd be scrolling through old pictures, or hear a song, or pass by a place we used to go and he'd break. That he'd finally understand what it meant to be loved by someone like me. What it cost me to stay. What it took to leave. But some people don't feel loss until it's convenient. And by then, it's not loss, it's memory. I used to think justice would heal me. That if he just knew, if he just felt the same sting, the same ache, the same spiraling silence, I'd be okay. But justice doesn't come the way we hope. Not in love, not in heartbreak. And waiting for him to feel what I felt was just another way of staying attached. Another way of tying my worth to his recognition. So I let it go. Not because he deserves peace, but because I do. I don't want him to suffer anymore. Not because I've forgiven everything, but because revenge is a leash, and I'm tired of being tethered to someone who never reached back. This grief is mine to carry, but it's also mine to put down. And I don't need his ache to validate mine anymore. I wanted him to feel what I felt, but he never will. And now, I can finally stop waiting for pain to make it even. Because this healing, it's not about him. It's about walking away without needing to be followed. I used to talk just to be seen, to explain myself into worthiness, to reframe my needs into something he might finally understand. But every word felt like it evaporated mid-air. He'd nod, half listen, change the subject, and I'd shrink, convinced I had to say it better next time. More gently. Less emotionally. More rational. I thought if I just found the right tone, the right timing, the perfect combination of softness and urgency, he'd finally hear me. But he never did, because he never wanted to. And one day, I just stopped. Not out of spite, not as a tactic, but because something inside me went quiet, I stopped explaining, stopped pleading, stopped performing understanding in hopes of being understood. The silence wasn't absence. It was clarity. It was the sound of my soul standing up and walking out of the room without slamming the door. For the first time, I felt what it meant to protect myself, not with walls, but with stillness. I wasn't silent to punish him. I was silent to return to me. And in that silence, I heard myself again. The real me. The one who knew too much love should never feel like begging. The one who realized being heard isn't something you force, it's something you deserve. This wasn't retreat. It was resurrection. Because when you stop talking to be heard, you start listening to your own life. And mine was whispering, leave. Not with fire, not with drama, but with grace. I don't need to be louder to matter. I just need to stop explaining my pain to those who choose not to feel it. And now, my silence is sacred. Not because it's quiet, but because it's mine. He used to leave like I would always stay. Like my love was some kind of furniture always there, even when ignored. He took my presence for granted because I offered it with open hands, no matter how cold his got. But I am not there now, and he feels it. Not in the way I felt his absence, the sharp ache, the spiraling silence, the nights that stretched too long, but in a quieter way. In the hollow where my softness used to be. In the silence that doesn't chase anymore. I don't haunt his phone. Don't echo in his inbox. Don't linger in the places I used to wait for crumbs. Now, I am the absence, and it's not a wound, it's a mirror. He reaches and finds no version of me waiting. No reply, no thread to pull, no open door to step through, because I sealed it. Not with anger, but with wholeness. I didn't block him out of spite. I didn't walk away to be missed. I became unreachable because I no longer exist in the frequency where his love ever made sense. I am not the girl who begged for clarity, not the woman who offered softness as currency, not the heart that cracked itself open just to feel seen. That version of me died the moment I stopped needing to be needed. He will look for me in the silence he used to weaponize. He will search for the echo of my forgiveness in women who do not carry my fire. But I am not a ghost in his story anymore. I am not a lesson, not a regret, not even a memory he gets to hold without cost. I am gone, in the way people never expect the strong ones to go, fully, finally, without ceremony. And what he feels now is not guilt, it's vacancy. A discomfort in his chest where once there was someone who made love feel like redemption. But this isn't revenge, this is reclamation. This is what it looks like when a woman returns to herself so fully, so fiercely, that no one can reach her without meeting her standards in full. I no longer orbit people who confuse care with control. No longer bleed to prove I'm worthy. No longer explain the kind of love I deserve. He will call it cold, but it's not. It's sacred. It's knowing. It's the kind of peace that comes after the storm, when the silence finally feels like safety. I didn't get over him. I grew beyond him. Into the kind of woman who is not pursued out of guilt, but out of reverence. The kind of woman who doesn't need to prove her softness, because her strength speaks first. He can miss me now, but he cannot reach me, because you cannot hold what you once handled carelessly. And I am no longer someone who waits to be chosen. I choose myself every time. This is not about what he feels. This is about what I no longer need to feel. I am the absence he cannot fill, because I was never a space to be occupied. I was a universe, and he never learned the language, and now he never will. There's a strange kind of silence that comes when you finally stop caring. Not the bitter kind, not the kind that masks pain with pride, but the sacred kind, the kind that wraps around your bones like truth finally finding a home. It doesn't arrive all at once. At first, it feels like numbness. You wonder if you're still broken, or just tired in a way the world doesn't see. You check yourself for grief, for longing, for that familiar ache, but there's nothing. Just breath, just space, just you. That's when you know. You're not empty. You're becoming whole again. When you stop caring, you stop writing stories in your head. You stop imagining the day he wakes up and realizes what he lost. You stop rehearsing conversations you'll never have. You stop waiting for closure because you realize you were the closure. You were the ending, the peace, the answer. And now, you're the beginning too. Because it was never about him. It was about the parts of you that thought you needed to be chosen in order to feel real. It was about the little girl inside who thought love meant chasing, pleasing, shrinking, hurting. It was about the part of you that learned early on that survival sometimes looks like self-abandonment. But not anymore. You're not chasing love now. You're becoming it. You're not explaining yourself anymore. You're listening to your body, to your breath, to the way your soul softens when you walk away from what once held you hostage. And no, it doesn't mean you're healed all the way. Some days still ache. Some memories still flicker. But now, they pass through you instead of controlling you. Now, you know how to hold yourself. Now, you don't need his voice to validate your existence. You don't need his eyes to feel seen. You see you. That's what it means to return. Not to a version of you that never hurt, but to the one who survived. The one who stayed through every goodbye. The one who whispered, "We're not done yet," when everything in you wanted to give up. And now, she's rising. Slowly, softly, without needing permission. This is what power looks like. Not loud, not sharp, but steady. Like rain that keeps falling. Like ground that never asks for applause but holds you just the same. You stopped caring about whether he comes back because the part of you that used to wait has already moved on. Not toward someone else, but toward yourself. And what a sacred homecoming that is. To stand in the ruins and realize you were the cathedral all along. So let this be the final prayer, not for his return, but for your remembrance. You were never too much. You were never asking for something impossible. You were just trying to love someone who could not meet you where you bloom. But now you bloom for no one. Now you rise without an audience. Now you belong to yourself. And when you stop caring, you don't become cold. You become clear. You become clean. You become free. This isn't the end of love. This is where love finally begins, not as something you chase, but as something you are.